And then Hode, you work Devil's Digest and you write for Rivals.com. Tell me a little bit more about your title and your involvement with just being in tune to the Sun Devils.
Sure, yeah. I've been the longest tenured Arizona State beat writer. I'm going into my 25th year of covering the Sun Devils, and I've been a website publisher for all those 25 years. And needless to say, this 25th year is definitely a special one with Arizona State embarking on a new frontier that's called the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah, and so I think this is good all around. I think the Big 12 conference, especially in basketball, is just awesome. And now it just seems like the biggest, strongest conference, with U of A's get the best recruits. ASU's got the caliber to do that as well. Texas and Baylor, and like they're all just so good. But on the football side, you could almost make an argument that this is now one of the best conferences alongside the SEC. So let's go broad first. What's your reaction to just ASU playing in the Big 12?
Well, look, I think the Pac-12 has really been a sinking ship for quite a few years. I think the leadership, both from the commissioners as well as from some of the university presidents, and I unfortunately do have to include Dr. Michael Crow, the Arizona State president, in that realm, really have failed the conference as a whole. I mean, we all know that the Pac-12 network has been a fiasco that's been in existence and coming to a merciful end over here in a few months. So I think that there's been a lot of elements in place that really prevented the Pac-12 from being on par. I'm not saying with the SEC because maybe that's mission impossible, but even try to be on par with the Big Ten, with an ACC, with the Big 12. So I think the Pac-12 dissolving really was a matter of when, not if. Obviously, the LA schools had the opening firing shot a couple of years ago when they announced going to the Big Ten. And I think ever since then, as I mentioned, the fate was really inevitable. And last August, it definitely came to a conclusion with Arizona State, along with Utah, Arizona, and Colorado going to the Big 12. Other teams going to the Big 10, to the ACC, but the Pac 12 is no more.
Yeah, and last thing before and about the past before we go onward and upward to the future, is there any like, I'm gonna miss that matchup between USC, UCLA? Obviously, U of A is still in the mix, and that's the important one in my mind. But is there any sort of like, I'm gonna miss this about the Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, but I think when I talk to fans, they're not really going to miss trips, let's say, to Corvallis and Pullman. Los Angeles obviously is always a fun trip. Seattle is too, in that vein. So I think it's really kind of a mix of bad goods as far as the road games that ASU fans are not going to go to right now. I had some ASU fans that already knew the Big 12 schedule, not so much as dates, but just as the teams that ASU is going to play away. And they said, well, there's not really a road game that I'm looking forward to. Maybe Cincinnati if I do a detour to Kentucky at some point. But otherwise, I think it's just really a period of adjustment for ASU fans. And like I said, some road games in the Pac-12 will be missed more than others.
All right, so the schedule came out about a half hour before we hopped on this call. Give me your first knee-jerk reaction as to the games to circle on your calendar. The things I notice are first home game at Mountain America Stadium, which still sounds weird coming off my tongue like that, is Kansas. The other games to consider are, let's see, Kansas, and then I'm thinking about the road game at Boone Pickens Stadium.
Mhm.
What else jumps off the page to you?
Well, I'd say, first of all, two bye weeks for Arizona State. It's definitely been a while since the Sun Devils did have that in their schedule. And now then you add a Friday game on top of that. I don't think ASU ever had a schedule that had two bye weeks and a Friday game. Now, the Friday game is going to be at home against Utah. So I think that is advantageous in that sense. And they also play Kansas the week before at home. So even dealing with a short week, when it's coming off a home game, that's always easier to navigate, I think, than coming off a long road trip. I think the fact that ASU's second bye week is after a game against Cincinnati, which miles wise, I think is going to be the longest road trip for the Sun Devils. So you can talk about the bye week also coming at an opportune time. You definitely have some irony over here where ASU is going to play Oklahoma State for the third straight year. Obviously, the first two games were just a part of a home and home series with a contract that was signed years and years before there was even ever any thought for ASU entering the Big 12. But that is definitely unique. ASU played at Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater just 2 years ago in 2022. So now they make a return trip over there. When you talk about the Territorial Cup, I know some folks really do like the Friday after Thanksgiving schedule. However, this is going to be a Saturday after Thanksgiving matchup in Tucson. So those are some of the game. Those are some of the, I'm sorry, the aspects of the schedule that really jump right at you. But I think really the overlying theme is just seeing a lot of teams on this schedule, maybe aside from Oklahoma State, ironically, that ASU fans are not accustomed to seeing. And so definitely going to be an adjustment period over there for those that still want to hang on to the Pac-12.
I appreciate you bringing up the travel.
Mhm.
Cincinnati's the furthest go at it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Further than BYU too. Where is
absolutely.
BYU?
BYU is in Provo, Utah. It's
Oh
about
yeah,
an
yeah.
hour away from
That's
Salt Lake City. So
that's a cup of coffee for a flight.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
flying. You know what I mean?
yeah.
To most of these. And then the last week again is U of A. Do you
Mhm.
see any Big 12 teams out there that would kind of, I guess we kind of have to see what happens on the gridiron before we make a
Sure.
judgment. But do you see any teams out there that say, you know what? I can see this one being a new rival.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I would point to BYU. I just feel that this is a team that the ASU played quite a bit in their WAC days. Did play at BYU in 2021. We're supposed to host BYU in 2020, and obviously because of the COVID season, we're not able to do that. So yes, I think that BYU has a very big following over here with the immense Mormon community in the Valley of the Sun. So absolutely BYU in terms of a new rival that is first and foremost the team that I would point to first. Really hard to talk about rivalries for teams from Texas, from Kansas, let alone Cincinnati, as far as developing of being rivals. I know some fans would disagree that Utah's a rival of ASU, but I always thought that those meetings were the most heated ones, second only to the Territorial Cup, obviously. So that is a continuing rival, if you will. I know ASU doesn't play Colorado this year, but we'll play them in 2025 and in years to come as part of the Big 12 schedule. And I think with all the hoopla over there with Deion Sanders as the head coach, maybe everybody is Colorado's rival at this point. But yeah, I think that BYU, as far as a new Big 12 rival, is a team that really jumps right at you. And again, there is some history between the both programs all the way back the WAC days in the 70s and 80s.
So that's good insight for those fans like my wife who got her undergraduate and master's degree where we met in Waco, Texas, over
Mhm.
for Baylor, or for me who didn't get into the University of Houston. For the that's okay, but my ACT score. But tell me, for those fans who want to see those games at ASU, when can you expect that? Because you're not going to play every. This is a huge conference now. You're
Yeah.
not going to play those teams every year.
Yeah, there's going to be a rotation between the teams. So teams like Baylor and Colorado that ASU is not playing this year, they're going to play in 2025 or the latest at 2026. Needless to say that the Territorial Cup is going to be a yearly event. So no ASU fan has to worry about skipping Arizona. That's simply not going to happen. I was a little surprised when the teams were announced on the schedule. But back in November, there were no dates back then, obviously, but that ASU was going to skip Colorado. So it looks like the Big 12 is open to the possibility and probably will continue to do so that the four Pac-12 teams that migrated don't necessarily have to play each other each and every year. Obviously, ASU is going to play Arizona every year, and I would assume also Utah and Colorado is going to play each other every year, although that rivalry is a forced one as fans from both teams are going to tell you. It's nothing like a Territorial Cup matchup. But yeah, I think that there's going to have to be a rotation. Look, I mean, they're a 16-team conference for the first time ever, even in Big 12 history. So there's just a lot of adjustments to do. I think in basketball it's easier just because it's a much longer season than football. But football, you are going to skip some teams. and now it's really up to the schedule gods. Are you skipping a team at a good time or a bad time? It's
Yeah.
a lesser extent that did happen with ASU when they always skipped two teams from the what used to be the North Division of the Pac-12, and sometimes you think, oh shucks, I wish I had Team A or Team B on my schedule this year instead of skipping them because they really are a bad team this year. And oh my gosh, I wish I missed this team on the schedule because they're playing lights out. So I suspect there's going to be some reactions like that with the Big 12 schedule. But again, you got a 16-team conference. There are a lot of elements to navigate, and skipping teams each and every year to the delight or to the chagrin of fans, that's going to be an ongoing phenomenon.
You're a really insightful guy, and I'm glad to have your contact. I have two last questions for you. One's a personal one, but we'll get to that. Kenny Dillingham, first year was last year. He was a chaparral coach, correct, Kenny?
It was part of the Chaparral High School staff.
Right.
Before it came to the ASU staff, I would say around 2012, 2013. Yeah.
I felt like at every turn that he was trying to say and do the right thing and talking with ASU fans, despite what the records show, they were really happy with him. And that surprised me, and it shows great loyalty. I've always long thought that ASU could be, a Texas. They could be a UT, a Florida, if they had the right pieces. You saw what happened to Colorado. They beat TCU, they shocked the world. Didn't go out the way they did, the rest of the season, but it was still really fun. And if that could happen in Colorado, it could definitely happen in the glistening city of Tempe. So tell me what your thought and your reaction was on Kenny Dillingham and what we can expect for the Sun Devils going into this brand new season in the Big 12.
Look, I think aside from a football coach just really having all the traits that you're looking for in a football coach, you also have that intangible of him being an alumnus. And I think that as enthusiastic as a football coach may or may not be, when he is going to coach his alma mater, ultimately, I think just puts it at a much different plane. And the fact that he was very emotional in his introductory press conference, that was anything but fake. And I know there's some cynics out there that might think differently, but trust me, Kenny Dillingham is somebody who wears his heart on his sleeve, maybe sometimes to his detriment. And I think he did admit that as far as some of the rookie mistakes that you make as a first year head coach. But nonetheless, I think his emotion, his commitment to his alma mater, that is something that you wouldn't get from any other head coach that would come and replace Herm Edwards. And I think that the Herm Edwards era, I mean, not to really belabor, that
Yeah.
that period in ASU football was an era that the ASU football fans really wanted to put in the rearview mirror as distant as possible. And I think when you have a coach in the caliber of Kenny Dillingham in terms of what he brings to the table, in terms of his, like I said, intangibles, his connection to the Valley, his connection to the program, that is exactly what the doctor had ordered in terms of really energizing the fan base, or as Kenny would say, activate the Valley. So I think Kenny Dillingham, ever since he got hired, he's saying all the right things, and more importantly, he's doing all the right things. And I don't think that a lot of fans are really dismayed by the 3-9 record. I mean, they know that it was just a season that the program had to take a lot of lumps, and surely they did. But they definitely see brighter horizons ahead. Now going to the Big 12. And look, I mean, I don't want to belittle a conference that I honestly don't know a whole lot more. I'm learning like everybody else, but I would say that the Pac-12 was a juggernaut compared to the Big 12 last year. And I don't know if the Big 12 this season, even with additions like Utah, Colorado, and U of A, is now just going to be a murder's row of a schedule like the Pac-12 was last year for Arizona State and a lot of other teams for that matter. So I think that Kenny Dillingham is definitely the right person for the job. I think he's done a great job in terms of his additions, whether it's from the recruiting class, whether it's from the transfer portal. And I think that there is a genuine excitement from this Sun Devil base fan that they have one of their own, if you will, coaching the team right now.
So last thing for you, all these changes to the Big 12 for the longest tenured beat reporter for the Sun Devils. How does this change your job?
A lot more travel, a lot more frequent flyer miles and hotel rooms. which can really cut both ways. But look, I think I'm excited just learning about new teams, seeing parts of the country more often than I did. I was there to cover the game at Texas Tech at Lubbock. I think it was back in 2016. So that's not foreign territory. Again, Oklahoma State, BYU, those are road games that big beat writers and fans just made in the last few years. But yeah, I just think just really getting to learn, different teams, and more importantly, just really interacting with a more passionate fan base. And I think the ASU fan base can be plenty passionate, and maybe they feel now that they really have to up their game because, again, not to beat a dead horse with the Pac-12, but I think when you just look at the fan base collectively of that conference, it was the passionless fan base, if that's a word, compared to the other Power 5 conferences. The Big 12, simply put, Jordan, you have to bring your A game when it comes to the passion, when it comes to the support. And I think that when you have the rabid fan bases of Texas Tech, of Oklahoma State, in other years, teams like Baylor, I just think that ASU fans are really going to feel that they really have to up their game and really just match that passion. There aren't really any crazy long road games, except Cincinnati this year, and probably UCF and West Virginia in the years to come. And I think somebody actually charted it and said that traveling to Seattle or Corvallis wasn't a whole lot further away, believe it or not, from Orlando or West Virginia. So I think ASU fans are probably looking forward to it. Again, last thing I'll say about the Pac-12, a lot of fans were just ready to move on. And I think that excitement is really going to really just invigorate this fan base, along with the head coach that is doing, I think, a good job turning around the program. And now in a new conference, realizing that you do have to match the energy of other fan bases. I think it could be a fun time for ASU football.